Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Unveiling Islam. I'm David Wood here with Brother Rachid. And Brother Rachid, a lot of people are going to be confused about how you could possibly be an ex-Muslim when there are such clear scientific miracles in the Quran. Have you heard this before, that the Quran is filled with miraculous scientific insights that couldn't possibly have been known at the time of Muhammad?
Well, you know, Dave, the first thing or the last thing that had me attached to Islam was scientific miracles. I found, when I compared Islam to Christianity, I found many topics that Christianity has valid arguments against Islam. But I was like, how about scientific miracles? I couldn't get over that. So I had to do my own research to come to a conclusion. And I picked the most famous topics. I started with them to find for myself, not for anybody else. And when I found the truth, then that's it. It was the last thing for Islam.
So you saw problems with Islam, but there was something holding you there. Still this idea that this had to come from God because of these scientific miracles.
Yes.
And then so I guess you eventually looked into the ones you thought were the best examples of scientific miracles.
Yeah.
And so you must have concluded that they're not really scientific miracles.
Because all these years that we spent, they have been telling us, how come Muhammad knew these things before scientific discoveries? It must be God who revealed these things. And they are talking about embryology, they are talking about cosmology, they are talking about sciences in the seas, and all these things. And we read books, we saw TV programs in Morocco, we saw scholars explaining them. At school, it's part of our curriculum at school. So you grow up thinking it's for granted. There are scientific miracles in the Quran.
And that was by the way, that was the first real argument I was given for Islam. A Muslim imam sat me down to watch this video on these scientific miracles. And what I noticed over and over again, they would quote a Quran verse, and they would talk for like 5 minutes about science with all these awesome graphics. And then they would say, how could Muhammad have known all these things? And I'm looking at the verse going, is that what the verse actually said? Because I didn't catch that in the actual verse. But
yes.
Looking at all the 5 minutes of graphics and so on, you think, wow, how could Muhammad have known all that?
Let's start with the most famous one. You can read 23:12-14.
So embryology.
Yes, embryology. Because that's probably the most famous one.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Surah 23, verses 12-14. I'll read the Haleli Khan. They insert some words as far as creating man out of clay and so on. So they insert like Adam and so on. But so this is the Haleli Khan translation. And indeed we created man, Adam, out of an extract of clay, water and earth, here they put. Thereafter we made him, the offspring of Adam, as a nutfa, mixed drops of the male and female sexual discharge, that's commentary, and lodged it in a safe lodging, they say womb of the woman here. Then we made the nutfa into a clot, a piece of thick coagulated blood. Then we made the clot into a little lump of flesh. Then we made out of that little lump of flesh bones. Then we clothed the bones with flesh. And then we brought it forth as another creation. So blessed be Allah, the best of creators. Little side note, that was from Abdul ibn Abi Sar, that blessed be Allah, best of creators.
To summarize it, we have clay, we have a drop, a sperm drop, we have a clot, a blood clot, and then we have a lump of flesh, and then we have bones, and then we cover the bones with flesh. Yep. Do you think that's something mind-blowing?
No.
Exactly. Have you seen like a skeleton by itself when anybody went to see their kid the first time and say, did you see a skeleton there? No, you never see that.
You would need it. So you're pointing out, like right here in the development, it goes from the fluid, then it becomes a blood clot.
Yes.
Then it becomes a lump of flesh, and then the lump of flesh becomes bones, and then those bones are clothed with flesh. So you're saying, when is there just bones before they're clothed with flesh?
You studied medicine, right?
I have a biology degree. That's not right.
Okay. Did they teach you these stages?
No, these are not the correct stages. It gets even worse when you go to what Muhammad said about them in the hadith, because he gives you a timeline. He says it's 40 days as the drop of fluid, and then 40 days as the blood clot, and so on. So that's like really, really wrong.
The most, I say, the argument that was really debunked this for me is when I found out the Greeks had this before the Quran.
Hippocrates, Aristotle, and then later Galen.
Galen had them the same way, and Galen was before the Quran. So it was a spread common knowledge everywhere, including Arabia. And people just thought that's the right stages of the fetus. And Muhammad just got that knowledge, put it into a verse. Where is the miracle here?
No, there's not. And you see, it's some things they knew, right? Like they understood, hey, man has sex with a woman, and it's got something to do with semen. They also thought it had a lot to do with blood, because women have a monthly menstrual cycle, and then it stops. So they're thinking in terms of blood clots. Plus, people had miscarriages and so on. So people at the time had an understanding of certain stages. When Muhammad goes beyond that, it's either clearly being copied from people like Hippocrates and Galen, or it's just wrong. But
the stunning thing, when I went to the commentaries, I wanted to read more. The hadith and the commentaries, they believe that the spirit is not breathed into the fetus until he is or she is 4 months old. After 120 days, he's not alive. And that's a clear scientific error. And until now, some schools in Islam, you can have abortion before the 4th month.
I've seen Muslim politicians.
Before 120 days.
I've seen Muslim politicians in the West say, as far as Islam is concerned, abortion is fine up through 4 months.
Exactly, because they believe he's not alive yet, based on the Quran. And this is a clear problem for Muslims they have to deal with.
So they're saying, and you pointed out, this is their go-to example of a scientific miracle in the Quran. These are stages that were already described by other people. And even in the hadith where it gives the 40 days, that's from the Talmud. So Muhammad is just hearing things from all around him and jumbling it all together. And then they say it's a miracle when, guess what? Galen got some things right. He also got some things wrong. And the wrong things all end up in the Muslim sources too.
Yes. Let's pick another one.
Okay.
You want to talk about, let's say, the Big Bang in the Quran?
Yeah, heard that one 1,000 times.
I say, have those who disbelieved not considered that the heavens and the earth were a joined entity? Joined entity, for them, it was like a tiny spot that exploded, and that's where the whole universe came from. And then we separated them and made from water every living thing. That's Surah Al-Anbiya, which is 21:30. So how do we respond to that?
Well, even looking at what it says, they're saying this corresponds to Big Bang cosmology. But if you look at what it actually says, and this was another theory that was common at Muhammad's time, it's called the cosmic egg theory. Like the heaven and earth were together as one thing, and then in creating, God separates them.
But isn't the Bible say the same? Doesn't the Bible say the same thing?
Lots of different people had the same thing.
Shamim and Ha'art, the heavens and earth were one thing. God created one thing, called it heavens and earth, and then separated them later.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. So he just copied a biblical knowledge, and they are talking about it as a miracle that nobody mentioned it before Muhammad.
And what's interesting here is they want to say that the description in the Quran of earth and heaven being separated, that's the Big Bang. But
an explosion.
That's not the Big Bang, right? The earth wasn't there already with the heavens, and then they get separated. So one, the Quran doesn't line up. In other words, a cosmologist is not going to say, yeah, the Earth was already there, and then it was separated out.
No.
But two, yes, other groups were saying this at the time. And so once again, how in the name of common sense is this miraculous scientific knowledge?
Another one they mention a lot, they say the two seas are separated by unseen barrier. And you can see it in many surahs. One of them is 55, 19, 20. In two surahs, actually, not many. He released the two seas meet in one another. Between them is a barrier, so neither of them transgresses. Mm-hmm. How do you respond to that?
Well, it's amazing. All the Quran here is saying is that, hey, over here is water you can drink, and over here is water you can't drink. Everyone knew that. When I read the commentaries, they said the barrier is land.
That's
so
true.
There's land. So there's water you can drink over here, water you can't drink over here, and then there's land in between them. And the point is actually a decent point. Like, look at how God set things up.
Yes.
But they're saying, no, this is talking about a barrier between fresh seas and so on, and they get all technical. It's like he's saying something very simple here.
They play on words most of the time. And they say that Jacques Cousteau, the French Jacques Cousteau, they say he became a Muslim. When I digged into his life, I read his biography. Actually, I went and I even had footage of his grave, and he's Catholic with a cross on his grave. And they say he became a Muslim because of this. He never said that. He never mentioned it. But it's very known in the Muslim world that Jacques Cousteau became a Muslim because he discovered this scientific
I always hear that.
miracle.
I heard Neil Armstrong, found something and so on. So
he became a Muslim. He heard the azan on the moon.
Yeah, it is strange how many things get made up. But I do have some good news to share for everyone who's watching out there. Recently, very popular Muslim apologists and da'is have announced that they are now rejecting this argument. So Ali Dawa, Hamzat Sorsis, they have said that the argument in general from scientific miracles in the Quran has been debunked. Their reasoning was, they said, look, in order to get this right, we'd have to know that the science isn't going to change. Then we'd have to know that this is what the Quran is actually saying. We're not putting the meaning in there. And we'd have to show that no one knew this at the time or before Muhammad. And they said there is nothing like that in the Quran. And so, fortunately for all of us, this argument is being rejected by Muslims in the English-speaking world, and we just hope that the Muslims in the Arab-speaking world catch up.
Hopefully.